Utilities Finance and Policy Committee to order. Today is Thursday, March 31st, about just a little after 3 o'clock. We have one bill on our agenda, Senator Senjem, your Senate File 4269, and I believe you have a delete all amendment you would like to move.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Yes, an A1 delete all amendment.
I believe it's A2 delete all.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sure, thank you. A2, I don't know what happened to A1.
All right. And then Ms. Fontaine. Sorry.
And Ms. Fontaine is going to run through this for us.
Okay. All right. So members, all in favor of the A2 amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is adopted. We will now go to staff to walk through the A2 amendment.
Mr. Chair, members, I'm sorry, I'm not on,
Oh, now you are.
I was not on Zoom yet, so now I am on Zoom. So you should have in front of you the A2 amendment, and the first section of the bill is it adds some money to the solar rewards program. So in in 22 and 23 and 24 would add $5 million to the current allocations, and so then that would be $10 million for each of those years. And then in 2025 it would add $10 million in new money. This would be for an additional year of funding to the solar rewards program that Xcel Energy administers. Sections 2 and 19, these come from the Senator Senjem's vehicle bill, and these sections modify due dates for a couple of reports. The first one is for a report on the utility disconnections by utilities under the cold weather rule. And then in section 19, I guess we'll get to that further, but that is an update to move a date for reporting for the telecommunications access report. Section 3 comes from Senator Kiffmeyer's Senate File 225, and that abolishes the prohibition for the Public Utilities Commission to issue a certificate of need for construction of new nuclear-powered electric generating plants. Sections 4 to 12 are from Senator Senjem's bill that was heard, I believe, on Tuesday in this committee from Senate File 4262, referred to as the securitization bill. And this provides a process for natural gas utilities to go to the Public Utilities Commission and have them issue a financing order to enable the natural gas utility to recover extraordinary event costs through the issuance of extraordinary event bonds. Section 13 is from another Senator Senjem bill, Senate File 3225. This would increase the acquisition cost limit for the Public Utilities Commission approval from what it's currently at $100,000 to $2 million. Section 14 is from Senator Senjem's bill, Senate File 4089, and this is for the Solar for Schools program that Xcel Energy manages, and it specifies that $8 million will be withheld in 2024 from transfer to the renewable development account. And this is slightly different than what was heard in committee the other day. It narrows it just to the $8 million to be withheld in 2024. Sections 15 to 17 come from Senator Weber's bill. It's a commercial PACE loan program that amends that program, and it would allow certain farmland and certain improvements to qualifying commercial real property. It adds that to the definition for eligibility for the commercial PACE loan program. Section 18 is from Senator Benson's bill that it sets forth a policy for state carbon capture. So it established that in statute. Section 20 is from Senator Kiffmeyer's bill, Senate File 2185. And this was heard a couple of weeks ago in committee. It would prohibit political subdivisions from banning or preventing a utility from connecting or supplying natural gas or propane to a building or utility customer. Section 21 is from Senator Matthews' bill, Senate File 4163. This would be for an advanced nuclear study to be conducted by the Commissioner of Commerce. Section 22 is from Senator Housley's bill, Senate File 2156. And this requires Xcel Energy to provide a plan and detailed timeline for the decommissioning and potential demolishing of the King Power Plant in Oak Park Heights. And then in Section 23, we have appropriations for the bill. There's $150,000 from the general fund for the advanced nuclear study that was in Senator Matthews' bill. Then there is some general fund for the Solar for Schools program for the non-Xcel territory school solar projects. That's for $4.15 million in fiscal year 23, and then $5.7 million in fiscal year 24. And then there's also some money for the Granite Falls Hydroelectric Generating Facility. That is from the Renewable Development account and would be $2.29 million. And the last section is a repealer, and this would repeal the sunset for the recovery of gas utility infrastructure costs. And Senator Senjem has a bill 3023 that right now that would just delay the repeal, but in the chair's proposal, it is now repealing the sunset. And that is the contents of the A2 delete all. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
Thank you very much for that. Senator Senjem, do you have any comments you would like to make before we go to, I believe we have at least one testifier?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Fontaine. I would like to, if I could, move to page 19, line 11, and make an adjustment there, if I could.
Yeah, you're going to do an oral amendment on
An
page
oral
19,
amendment to
Senator
make
Senjem?
2 million, 1 million. That would be
Alright,
my
so-
motion, Mr. Chair.
All right, so Senator Senjem is making an oral amendment on page 19, line 11, to delete $2 million and insert 1 million. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That oral amendment is adopted. Senator
Mr.
Senjem,
Chair,
any more?
with that, these are initiatives that are at least bills, et cetera, that we heard, so I'm not going to dwell on them and further explain them, particularly in the essence of time. Members, we do need to be back on the floor by 4:30, so if we can move, I mean, we need to do this right, I understand, but I don't need to explain things that have already been explained, so let's to move ahead with any amendments that members might have.
All right, before we do that, I do know one testifier had approached us, John Kelly from Department of Commerce. If you would identify yourself and you can begin your testimony when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. For the record, I'm John Kelly. I'm the Government Affairs Director from the Minnesota Department of Commerce. While we appreciate the funding for Solar for Schools program and our provisions of our energy technical bill that are included in the Senate Energy Omnibus, the department is disappointed to see that the Energy Omnibus does not include a number of items from the governor's budget heard in this committee earlier in session, specifically the State Competitiveness Fund, the Weatherization Assistance Program funding, Water Utility Resilience funding, and 3 proposals that would boost private investment in our state in energy projects, including the Decarb Tech Fund, grants for the Renewable Infrastructure and Integration from RDA, and the Green Innovation Finance Fund. The department hopes that we can work collaboratively with the chair and members as we go along in this process to hopefully include some more important provisions that were in the governor's budget for energy. So thank you, members.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We will now move to member comments or amendments. All right, first up, let me see. I don't know if Senator Matthews is online. I don't see him here yet, so I will move the A4 amendment. Members, this is an amendment that came forward to us as we've heard from a number of, especially counties, with a concern with these larger facilities that are coming in place. Once it hits that 50 megawatt amount, it goes right to the PUC, and the local lose all ability to say anything. This amendment would say that all regulation and everything will remain at the PUC, but you still have to get the local approval on the site location of these large energy facilities. So, Senator Frentz, I see you put your hand up.
I did, and thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm opposed to the A4 amendment. The obvious question is, why would we place this restriction on this form of energy and not place it on coal or gas? I guess that question is directed to you, Senator Senjem. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and the author would support this amendment. I'm not so sure, it maybe doesn't need a little more wordsmithing and so on, but we'll have time to do that. But the reason I would say is that a coal plant is a coal plant. It doesn't extend, you know, three sections of land in the case of my situation in Dodge County, which is a lot of land. And so, and obviously county people are concerned about that. They want a little input. So again, these words, the language may not be quite where it ought to be. We can talk about that through the process, but at least for today, I think this sets us up for that discussion.
Thank you, Senator Senjem. Senator Frentz, follow up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Senjem. I think my concern would be the committee's got one of its responsibilities to reduce carbon emissions, and we seem to be putting up a potential roadblock for these two renewable technologies. And I'm not suggesting counties are against renewable energy. I'm just saying, as we see these being treated differently from coal and gas, we have to ask ourselves, is it our desire to reduce carbon emissions and energy generation in Minnesota? I hope that it is. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Frentz. And again, these are the two that came forward for many of our rural counties with the concern that they want to be able to have a voice. These are the types of facilities that are coming in to their area right now. Senator Chamberlain.
Yeah, just quickly, it's a significant piece of infrastructure that's going in, 50 megawatts. I don't think it unreasonable to allow locals to do that. Being around here for a few years, it happens with all sorts of things in local government. So it's not unusual with this or anything else. So thank you.
Mr. Chair, and I could just comment, and you know,
Senator Senjem.
we're all victims of our own life experience. And in my county, there's a proposal, and I don't quarrel with it. I think it's a worthy proposal, but it is, you know, 200 megawatts, 3 square miles of solar panels. That's pretty big. That's as big as I've ever seen by a long ways. And so the county would like to have a little bit of input into this. And even though they do have ordinances which relate to solar development, wind development, their ordinances don't apply. And I'm just thinking there must be some way to kind of make this work and massage it for the good of everybody. And that's what we hope to do, before we come back.
Are there any other comments from the committee members? Seeing none, all those in favor of the A4 amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Amendment is adopted. Next, Senator Newton, I believe you have the A9 amendment.
The A9 amendment is to install solar panels on the National Sports Center ice rink and the maintenance facility that's attached to the ice rink. This will save the sports facility roughly $1 million a year in electric costs for that facility. So it'll pay for itself within roughly 4 to 5 years at the most.
Thank you, Senator Newton. And as I read this, I see this would be an appropriation from the RDA account, is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I would support this. It is a state facility, as we know that, and again, as was pointed out, a lot of refrigeration, a pretty intensive electrical load, and to the extent this would help and with that short payback, I think it's meritorious.
All right, members, any other questions or Senator Utke?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just a question for Senator Newton. Is this strictly on the roof? And if so, what is the capacity that can be generated from that type of footprint?
Senator Newton.
Thank you for the question to which I have no answer. But I do believe that Mr. Todd Johnson is standing by if he can get online. The fact is that that's an 8-rink facility. It's the largest ice rink in the United States. And it's a huge facility. And of course, as you know, freezing ice takes a tremendous amount of electricity. So it's huge.
Mr. Chair. Yeah,
Senator.
and that's fine. It's a large facility then, and that's kind of what I was after, because I'm thinking about how you could generate that much off a typical size roof, but it's not your normal facility. So.
No, and in addition, the maintenance facility is attached right to the back of the rink as well, so, and that's a large facility as well.
All right. Any other comments or questions from members? Seeing none, all those in favor of the A9 amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Aye. The amendment is adopted. Next up, I have the A7 amendment, and I guess I will move the A7 amendment, and this is a technical fix to the RDA account, and we will go to council once again for an explanation.
Mr. Chair, Member Senator Barrick, this, as you mentioned, this is some changes to the Renewable Development Account statute. And there are 3 changes that are of substance here. The first starts on the bottom of page 3. And this really provides some a mechanism for the advisory group that is not, currently I don't think it's functioning. But this would provide a mechanism for it to work the way I believe that Xcel Energy and other stakeholders have envisioned, or for the way it should work now with the money going to the RDA versus the way it had been done before. So that's what that first portion would do. The next change is on page 4, and this provides that the cost for third-party technical assistance, third-party expert for the advisory group to provide expert advice cannot exceed $150,000, and then it's taken from the funds that are withheld by Xcel under this mechanism. And then the last change is really just another technical change on line 5.4, and just says that the public utility has to provide the report to the legislature instead of the advisory group. And that is the A7.
Thank you very much for that explanation. And members, do we have any questions?
Mr. Chair, just the author would certainly accept this. This is something that we have struggled with in terms of process pertaining to the RDA. And I think we just need to have some experience with this, find out if it works. We won't know until we try it, but it's an attempt to, again, put some structure to the issuance, if you will, of RDA money out of that account. And it's all through the legislature, so we don't lose control, but it provides a little, examination of these projects, perhaps more than we do now, ahead of time.
Very good. Members, any other questions or comments on the A7 amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That amendment is adopted. Now I believe we have an A8 amendment that is a direct correlation to the amendment we just did with some of the fiscal. Senator Utke, would you move the A8 amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'd like to move the A8.
All right, and do we have staff prepared to explain, Mr. Mumm?
Mr. Chair and members, this is kind of a companion amendment to the A7 that was just adopted. The A7 allows Excel to withhold $150,000 a year to pay for that third-party evaluator. Current law directly appropriates $500,000 a year from the RDA to the Department of Commerce for that purpose, but due to the technical issues outlined when the A7 was presented, they haven't been able to expend that money, and it ends up canceling after a year. This just proactively does that and repeals that appropriation, which is now unnecessary given the changes in the A7 amendment.
Mr. Chair, the bill author would support this.
All right, I do see we have a testifier who would like to speak to this. Mr. Evans, please identify yourself for the record and can begin your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Rick Evans with Xcel Energy. I want to thank you for putting this provision in the bill. I think, as Senator Senjem mentioned, it would be good for us to try to get this back on track. On the amount of money, the reason the $500,000 was set aside to the Department of Commerce last year was an attempt to do this sort of, well, it didn't work because they've got the money and they don't have anything to do with it. But the $500,000 is the right amount. For $150,000, we can't hire an expert evaluator and run the committee with that amount of money. So if you're going to take the money back from the Department of Commerce, it would be great to deploy that for the use. We don't necessarily need to do it today, but we didn't kind of catch this amendment before it came up just late this afternoon. But the $500,000 is the correct amount if we want this to actually work.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions or comments on the A8 amendment? And I believe with the testimony, we will continue to engage and talk about that as we move forward. Seeing no other questions or comments, all those in favor of the A8 amendment signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The amendment is adopted. All right, Senator Senjem, we have an A6 amendment that was brought to us by Senator Matthews. He is not here. Would you like to move the A6 amendment for Senator Matthews?
I'll move forward on this, Mr. Chair and members. Again, this has to do with the transitioning of within communities that have major power plants, and this amendment would propose to provide $3.5 million out of the RDA to go into what we might call or what we do call, frankly, a community energy transition grants that would go to communities. The grants be no more than $500,000 per year to any community, but that they would work towards the transition and frankly a lot of loss of tax base as these things close down, and trying to really prepare for a new vitality within these communities. So that's the essence of this grant, or this proposal, the A6 amendment.
Thank you, Senator Senjem. Staff, council, is there anything that would need to be added to that, or is that a pretty full description?
Mr. Chair, members, I'm not sure if Senator Senjem mentioned that, so there's that 3.5 million
Right.
coming from the RDA. There's no general fund money in this bill.
Very good. Thank you very much. Members, any questions?
Mr. Chair, I believe this would be limited to RDA, pardon me, Xcel Energy service territory, but perhaps council can
Yes, Mr. Chair,
Reassure
members,
me.
in the amendment, it does specify that the appropriation is only for grants within the service territory of Excel.
Good, thank you.
I'm sorry, I keep covering up my camera.
Very good. Any other comments or questions from committee members? Seeing none, all those in favor of the A6 amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The amendment is adopted. Members, I believe that is the last amendment I have in front of me. Are there any other amendments that committee members have they wish to bring forward? I am not seeing any. Are there any comments from committee members to the bill as amended? Senator Frantz.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Senator Senjem. You know, the committee's mandate is to help the state with energy and utilities, and I know that you put in a lot of work on this, and I know that you want our state's policy to be forward-looking. So do I, and so do my colleagues on the DFL side. First of all, Mr. Chair, Senator Senjem, to take the bill as a whole, I guess I'm a yes on it, but I'm disappointed. There's some things in there that I think would have been better for the state, and I hope we'll have a chance to talk about them. It's already been mentioned, the State Competitiveness Fund. Weatherization is a chance to help low-income Minnesotans decrease their energy costs. I think that's good for us, not only from a decarbonization standpoint, but just from trying to help Minnesotans get lifted up a little bit. The Cub intervenor bill, which received a lot of discussion, is not included here. I hope the discussion on the Cub intervenor bill will continue. I think that's obviously a positive step for Minnesota. And, you know, just in general, I want the Energy and Utility Committee to stand for the idea that we're working on climate change as part of our energy goal. It doesn't have to be all of it. We're interested in affordability and reliability too. But as I've said before on the committee, clean, affordable, reliable requires us to look at clean and an emphasis on technologies that are carbon-free. We didn't talk about it much, but for carbon sequestration, just throwing this out there, that, you know, this technology is not really known yet. And I think if we're going to have carbon sequestration be a policy of the state of Minnesota, then we ought to say what our goals are. For example, would we accept a carbon sequestration technology that sequesters 1% of a facility's carbon emissions? That would be sequestration, but it wouldn't be much. And you might argue that's not moving us in the direction we want to move fast enough. You might flip that on its ear, Mr. Chair, and say, what if we said it's the policy of the state that we will support technologies that sequester 95% of the carbon emissions of a facility? Some might say, well, then you're ruling out some stuff where you still get a little bit of a carbon reduction benefit. Somewhere in there, Mr. Chair and Senator Senjem, I think is the sweet spot. And I'm encouraging the committee as we go forward to ask, if we're going to have a policy of the state, what does that mean? What is it that qualifies? And what can we do to make that a reality so that we can do the things we need to do and reduce carbons? Having said all that, I'm glad to see the amendment go on from my friends at the National Sports Center. I know we got some conversations. I hear the House has a bill that may not match up perfectly with this just quite yet, and I look forward to being a part of the conversation. Thank you, Senator Senjem, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Frantz. Any other members? I guess one or a couple of quick comments that I would make. You know we had some concerns about the lack of the governor's provisions. I know there were some issues with how their bills getting drafted. You know, those conversations, I believe, will continue, but we had a very short amount of time to really look at those. And as mentioned, you know, the other body may have a number of things, and it may be one of the shortest same and similars documents we've ever seen. But I think, you know, this is a good bill, Senator Senjem, that you've put forward, and one that we can begin our work and move forward with our negotiations with the other body. Are there any other comments or questions from the committee before we go? Senator Chamberlain.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Senjem. I think it's a nice little bill, move us forward, explore different areas. So thank you for putting it together. I think you get some bipartisan support here. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, just if anybody else, I don't know if anyone else.
I was going to see if Senator Torres Ray, I do not see her. Okay, nope, she's saying no. So I do not see any other questions or comments. So Senator Senjem, to you for the final comments on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would just say that in some respects, I think this is a breakthrough bill. We'll see how it all works out, but it seems like at least within the Senate, we are finally able at least to have a conversation about nuclear power. It may or may not become a reality in Minnesota. We'll never know, and there'll be a lot of steps along that journey relative to whether that really does ever occur. But at least with at least an inkling of interest in the Senate, perhaps we might convey that to the House, and the journey might continue. I think hope so, because I think the small reactor, nuclear reactor, modalities are certainly have to be part of the menu of the future. So the bill, I think, is exciting in that respect. There's certainly a lot to be worked out with the nuclear power storage and so on, storage of the waste and things like that. We understand that, but the bill is, carries forward with solar reward, solar on schools, I think nicely. It also, and just a reference to the governor's bill, I don't know exactly what happened, whether it's a revisor, et cetera. Senator Friends, I first saw that bill either the day you got it or the day before you got it, but very, very recently. And there are things in there I think that hopefully, perhaps as the session goes on, we can need to talk about. We do have certainly the federal infrastructure bill, and that money staring us in the face, and that deals with the weatherization, hydrogen innovation, grid, and things like that. I'm not sure if this committee or the other committee is going to deal with the AV chargers, EV chargers. I'm sorry, but there's conversation within the framework of that bill that we need to, I think, have going forward. So for today, we have, I think, a good bill to start with, and hopefully we can see where this goes. Doesn't have to go too far. I'm not saying that, but we'll see where it goes. And so we've got, I want to thank the members of the committee, by the way, for the indulgence and the participation in the committee work leading up to this, and we'll see if there's more to come. So with that, Mr. Chair, I would move adoption of the A2 amendment as amended.
All right, so I believe, Senator Senjem, the motion will be, that you will make, is that Senate File 4269 as amended will be recommended to pass and be referred to Finance. Is that correct?
That would be correct, Mr. Chair.
All right. Members, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
It is adopted, and you're on your way to Finance, Senator Senjem.
Thank you so much.
And members, that is all we have on our agenda for today, so we will stand adjourned.
Mr. Chair, could I just okay,
actually, go ahead,
in
Senator.
recess then. So the committee is not meeting next Tuesday. We'll meet the following Thursday in deference to the Capital Investment Committee, which needed space and members that weren't otherwise encumbered at this particular time of day. We're going to yield this room to them, but we'll return next Thursday and subsequently Tuesdays and Thursdays, perhaps throughout the remainder of the session. Thank you very much.
Very good. And members, we are adjourned.